Greetings and salutations, everyone. My name is Kiorkof, and welcome to my YouTube channel. Today, we're talking about SuperFlex draft strategies for the 2023 fantasy football season. Now, I know that SuperFlex formats are relatively niche amongst redraft leagues, but I can with 100% confidence say it is the most competitive format in fantasy football. When you add additional value to the quarterback position, it changes the entire economy of fantasy football. In a regular 12-team league, 12 starting quarterbacks present value every single week, while the other 20 starting quarterbacks are immediately voided because they're either on your bench or on the waiver wire. By giving every single team an additional starting quarterback position, it not only gives value to 12 other starting quarterbacks, but the quarterbacks that would never be rostered in a normal league are immediately your backups and will have to contribute at least twice throughout that season, which is 14% of games, to go ahead and help you win, because again, you have quarterbacks with bye weeks. So by presenting value to the quarterback position, it not only changes strategies for drafts, trading, but also additionally waiver wire when injuries do occur. I truly do believe it is the most competitive format of fantasy football. So that's why we're going to go ahead and talk about some draft strategies in order to set you guys up for success. I'll be talking about 3 draft strategies throughout today's video in specific, and one that I have found the most success with over the years, which has helped me capture my own fantasy football championships. Before we get into today's content, I want to remind you, again, if you guys have not yet already, subscribe to the channel. We're making daily fantasy football content for the entirety of the 2023 season in order to help you win a 2023 fantasy football championship. Now, besides the daily videos and live streams that I'll post on the channel, another way to get an advantage upon your league mates is with my 2023 fantasy football draft guide. Again, it's available right now. So if you travel to the description of the video and click on the link and travel to Underdog Fantasy and use code Andrew to sign up and make a first-time deposit minimum of $10, not only are you going to get a deposit match up to $100, you're additionally going to get my 2023 fantasy football draft guide and rankings. Those rankings include by position, quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers, tight ends, kickers, and defenses. Additionally, by tier, and top 200 flex for both half PPR and full PPR. Those rankings will be updated every single week throughout the month of August and will be sent from my email to yours to make sure that regardless of when you're drafting, you're setting yourself up for success going into 2023. Now, in order to sustain that success for the entirety of the 2023 season, I'll additionally be sending you weekly Sunday morning emails, which include rankings by position, by tier, with flex rankings that, again, isn't provided on the channel, in a half and full PPR format in order to help you win a 2023 fantasy football championship. So help me help you. Use code Andrew via Underdog Fantasy. Sign up today and start drafting. For those of you who are wondering whether you're eligible, you can go ahead and check out the map to the right side of the screen to determine your eligibility based on where you're located. So go ahead, check it out today and draft responsibly. Thank you very much. All right, let's get into talking about SuperFlex draft strategies for the 2023 fantasy football season. But before we get into a specific strategy, I do want to explain a little bit of the logic before we get into it statistically. I've gone ahead and collected the averages of our top 24 quarterbacks in fantasy football in a 6-point per passing touchdown league and 4-point per passing touchdown league over the last 3 seasons. Now, the primary reason I wanted to mention the top 24 averages is because on a weekly basis in a SuperFlex format, 24 starting quarterbacks are being put to the test. So when you go ahead and invest in quarterbacks that are of higher value, it is going to give you a significant advantage, especially in leagues in which it is 6-point per passing touchdown. Now, as we approach our draft, you have to keep in mind that on average between the first 3 rounds, we're typically seeing about 12 to 16 quarterbacks come off the board. In comparison to a regular redraft league where there's only 1 starting quarterback, the impact of quarterback is significantly more vital to your overall team's success. Therefore, you need to use higher draft capital in order to ensure that you get the right quarterbacks on roster in order to help you win a championship in the given year. But I also believe it's important that your third quarterback has the potential of being a top 24 player, because you'll be able to utilize them not only as a weekly fill-in, as a spot start for bye weeks, but they could also be utilized as trade fodder. But we'll talk about that more in the future. I just wanted to go ahead and represent the drop-off in production at the quarterback position over the course of the last 3 seasons on average, and then also show you guys in terms of a half PPR scoring format, what we've witnessed from the running back, wide receiver, and tight end positions, and in comparison, what the drop-off in production looks like. I know I present this a lot on screen, but it gives you an idea just how volatile the quarterback position can be alongside running backs and wide receivers and tight ends, and why you need to go ahead and use high draft capital in order to ensure you're getting players that are going to contribute on a weekly basis at a very high level. All right, with all that covered, let's get into our first draft strategy, which I like to call hero quarterback. The entire logic behind this draft strategy is to select a quarterback in the first round. Like I was mentioning earlier, about 12 to 16 quarterbacks are taken within the first 3 rounds of a SuperFlex format. And if it's in a 6-point per passing touchdown format, it's probably near the higher end of that number. But if you play in a 4-point per passing touchdown league, taking a quarterback in the first round has a lot of viability. Like we talked about in terms of the drop off in production, and like we see in our normal 12-team leagues where there isn't a second starting quarterback, we see Patrick Mahomes, Jalen Hurts, Josh Allen selected in the 2nd/3rd rounds. So giving them the additional value of being a first round pick isn't really much of a surprise. But the logic behind this draft strategy in specific, like you guys can see on screen in terms of the specific path that I've laid forth, you want to select an elite quarterback in the first round. Specifically, one of my top 1 through 8 quarterbacks, like I presented in the top 12 rankings video that I posted at the quarterback position yesterday. So if in fact you can solidify one of the top 8 in the first round, fantastic. But then you're additionally trying to get a top 12 player at running back and or wide receiver in your following next 3 rounds. You can certainly draft a Travis Kelce in the 2nd round if he's available. If you can pair it up with an elite quarterback, that's perfectly fine because he is a consistent option. But you have to just keep in mind, you want to collect a wide variety of positions in this, hero quarterback strategy, because you're trying to make sure that while other people are going for their second quarterbacks, you're gaining additional advantages at other positions, whether it be running back, wide receiver, and tight end. Now, I know the question that you're asking yourself, Andrew, when are we going back in for the second quarterback? When are we going to make that next investment? I would typically say in a hero quarterback strategy, you can go back in as early as the 5th round, or you can wait until the 9th round, technically. There are many ways to go ahead and utilize this strategy. It just depends how comfortable you feel with the quarterbacks that are available in your draft. For example, if you were going to go back in and try to grab a quarterback in the 6th round in a SuperFlex format, you'd probably find someone like Derek Carr and or Brock Purdy available. And if you're comfortable with those quarterbacks being your number 2, which I am, I think it's a perfect time to go back in and invest in a second quarterback. Additionally, probably grabbing another quarterback by the 9th round. But again, it depends on how comfortable you are and how risk averse you are and how the rest of your league is drafting. Again, there isn't one singular way to draft. Even though I've put together a draft path on screen, it doesn't mean that that's going to come to fruition, because your league mates may draft differently than I anticipate and or how my league mates draft. Therefore, you want to go ahead and continue to be fluid, not specifically tunnel on the idea of, hey, this is when I'm investing in another quarterback, but try to play the value, see when you can invest, and make the most of that draft capital when the time comes. Now, in a hero quarterback strategy, you have to understand that it is a hero quarterback because they're an elite level talent. If in fact you were thinking, all right, Andrew, what if I select one quarterback within my first 3 rounds? Can that still be considered a hero quarterback strategy? I think you're just taking too much of a discount there. I think the disadvantage that implies to you by not getting an elite level talent at the quarterback position and settling for someone in the 3rd/4th round like a Tua Tagovailoa and or Daniel Jones is not going to help you enough to justify the overall draft strategy. We'll talk about one upcoming right now that waits on the quarterback position and could give you value in that context, which is considered the zero quarterback strategy. Now, just like a zero RB strategy, you want to wait at the position and build out the rest of your roster and then go back in and take players that you believe can be solid contributors on a weekly basis. Obviously, we talked about the drop-off in production at the quarterback position. And when you go ahead and you invest late at quarterback, especially in a league where 2 quarterbacks are contributing every week, it is absolutely risky. I personally prefer a hero quarterback strategy probably 9 times out of 10 over a zero QB strategy. But it's not to say that you can't find success in this manner. In the current draft path that I've established on screen, you wouldn't take a quarterback until the 4th round. And that's when you have to go back in. You should never leave your 4th round in a SuperFlex format without a quarterback. Because as soon as we get to the position of the best available quarterback is someone that's going to rank around 16 to 20, you really are going to be in a little bit of trouble when investing and trying to compete in your league. Sure, you're going to have guys like Christian McCaffrey, Tyreek Hill, Amon-Ra St. Brown, all on the same roster, and that's going to look fantastic, but the quarterback position is going to determine your, potential success for the future of your league. Now, with that being said, it's not impossible to predict quarterback success that completely outlives their ADP. The quarterbacks I've demonstrated on the bottom of the screen, like Geno Smith last season, which was a waiver wire wonder. Guys like Jared Goff, who was being valued last season as like a middling, 20-something quarterback, like 23 to 25th ranked quarterback last season. Justin Fields, Trevor Lawrence, guys that were being slept on. They exist this upcoming season. There are going to be guys out there that could potentially be the guys that step up and outproduce their overall ADP, like a Jordan Love, like a Kenny Pickett, like a Brock Purdy, that you could go back in and invest on. But I think at very least you need to leave with one quarterback by the 4th round, at very least. Because if you don't leave your draft with a quarterback by that 4th round, you're leaving your league up to chance. You're really leaving it up to the fantasy gods and saying, hey, that quarterback that I'm selecting to be my number 1, he is going to outproduce without a doubt. Because if he doesn't, your league is pretty much in shambles. So the last draft strategy I wanted to mention, the one that is probably the most mellow amongst the group, is a heavy QB strategy. As you can see to the draft path I've established on screen, the first 4 rounds consists of selecting 2 quarterbacks. I don't care which order you do it in. I've established it as taking an elite quarterback in the first and a backup quarterback in the 4th, one like Joe Burrow, Tua Tagovailoa as a combo. Additionally, getting yourself running backs, tight ends, or wide receivers in between in rounds 2/3. But the entire point of this kind of heavy quarterback strategy is to take advantage of the drop-off in production, especially if you're playing in a league where you have 6 points per passing touchdown and you're going to get 2 quarterbacks that are capable of throwing 30 to 35 touchdowns in a given season. In a strategy like such, you don't really have to go back in for a 3rd quarterback for quite a while. You can probably wait and draft a quarterback like CJ Stroud or maybe even Jimmy Garoppolo and just have them come in for like a weekly play that might end up being like 13 to 15, 16 points, which is pretty much all you'll need in those couple of weeks where your primary studs are out. But this just gives you a little bit more balance at quarterback, and it allows the quarterback position to specifically carry you in the given season. You may be taking a little bit of a discount in terms of your other primary positions being running back, wide receiver, or tight end. But if you draft correctly and you get players later in rounds that end up outproducing their ADP, it's not going to matter. You'll be able to put up an incredible fashion of points every single week while having 2 stud quarterbacks that are going to carry you to the promised land. Now, of those 3 strategies, again, I do prefer the hero quarterback approach, but either way, heavy QB is always on the table for those of you who are playing in leagues where quarterbacks are going to go, early and often. I got to make sure that I get them on my roster before the rest of my league dries out the position and I'm sitting there just hoping to get, a backup quarterback or a second quarterback that can produce more than 15 points in a given week. The last thing that I wanted to mention before we close out today's video in regards to SuperFlex draft strategies is talking about when in specific you should be selecting your 3rd quarterback. Your 3rd quarterback should be irreplaceable. It should be a player that cannot be benched for any circumstance at all. Bad play should not be able to affect them. They need to be franchise quarterbacks or quarterbacks that are being paid enough money to where the organization doesn't even bat an eye at replacing them regardless of how bad they're playing. So in my mind, these are quarterbacks like Jordan Love on screen. Again, he's given the opportunity to try to fill in for Aaron Rodgers. They're not going to replace him. They're going to let him play through whatever he has to deal with, whether it's highs or lows at the quarterback position. Kenny Pickett is another quarterback like such. Bryce Young, if he starts week 1, which I'm anticipating that he will do, it's not going to be difficult for him to start over Andy Dalton. But when he does, he's another quarterback that I'd love to have as my QB3. Additionally, Matthew Stafford, someone that sure did not play well last season, dealt with injuries, but is not going to be replaced within his offense considering they're paying him $50+ million a year, and he is going to give them the best chance of winning every single week, which of course they want to do within that organization. When I made suggestions last season in terms of quarterbacks that were irreplaceable, I mentioned guys like Jared Goff. Jared Goff finished as a number 10 quarterback. Davis Mills finished as a number 21 quarterback. Both guys that, again, were being valued as lower end, either QB3s or low-end QB2s in the case of Jared Goff, who certainly outproduced their ADPs, which, again, if you're able to invest in a Kenny Pickett, Love, Bryce Young, Stafford, you'll be able to find that in a QB3. Now, not only will they be able to contribute to your team in 2 out of the 14 weeks prior to the fantasy playoffs beginning, again, 2 out of 14 weeks is about 14% of your given season. So if you're able to get value and not forfeit those specific games because you don't have a 3rd quarterback, fantastic. But similar to like I mentioned earlier, that 3rd quarterback could also be used as trade fodder. Or if in fact they outproduce their ADP, they could become a starter and you can trade away one of the players that you selected earlier in said draft in order to acquire additional depth at different positions if in fact an injury is to occur in your league. Now, the 2 final things I wanted to mention before we close it out here. Additionally, at the 3rd quarterback position, you need to ensure that their bye week does not line up with one of your 2 quarterbacks. If you finish your draft and you weren't able to avoid 2 of your quarterbacks having, shared the same bye week, you could still survive by making a trade prior to those bye weeks and not forfeiting that specific week within your season. Or you can perhaps get lucky, somehow play a team that is dealing with a bye-apocalypse and end up stealing a victory with a running back in your super flex position. I've seen it happen. I've done it to people. Besides a third quarterback, there is a logic and or validity to selecting a fourth quarterback. If you really are out here trying to push the, press the issue against other teams in your league, hey, this team, he doesn't have his third quarterback yet. I can go ahead, prevent him from getting a third, additionally prevent another team from getting their third quarterback, and have 4 on roster so that I can use them as trade bait later on in the season. Trade fuel is always good to have, especially with the unpredictability of injuries in the National Football League, which can certainly help you out throughout the season. That's going to cover it for me today. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Be sure to subscribe to the channel for daily fantasy football content for the entirety of the 2023 season. Again, do not forget, my 2023 fantasy football draft guide is now available, so go ahead, check out the link down in the description. I put in hundreds of hours of effort and data research in order to help you guys out for your 2023 fantasy football draft. It includes rankings. The rankings will be updated every week. So sign up today using code Andrew. Make that first-time deposit. Help me help you for the entirety of the season, because, again, those rankings continue throughout the regular season, so that if you're sitting there on a Sunday morning wondering, Andrew, who do I start in the flex? Is it James Cook this week or is it Samaje Perine? And you don't know the answer, and it's in a full PPR format, and Andrew's live stream doesn't entail that, you'll have the answer because I will have sent it to you ready to go to help you win in that given week. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Tomorrow we'll talk about my top 12 tight end rankings for the season. And until next time, I'll see you guys. Peace.